Really what I wanted to do is just share our journey that we've had at Harrods in terms of the implementation of a digital screen network, which we really started about 10 years ago. But before I do that, just for those of you that might not be familiar with Harrods, it's that big store across the road with lots of lights on. It is in fact one of the UK's biggest tourist attractions. It's obviously an iconic global landmark. It's really a microcosm for the world. We have visitors from over 130 different countries every month. We have 40 million visitors every year, which equates to around about 40,000 customers every day. It's clearly a house of luxury brands. We have over 330 departments, over 7 floors, 1.2 million square feet of luxury retail selling space. And of course, things like the opulent and majestic food halls, which attract tourists from all over the world. And as Stuart mentioned in the introduction, we've developed an integrated media portfolio over the last 10 years, really as a result of the brands and concessions in the store that have been looking for an effective way of really communicating with the 40-odd thousand customers that walk in through the door every day. So I think prior to going back about 15, 20 years ago, most brands were engaging and spending their marketing funds on reaching customers outside of Harrods. And I think what we've seen is a way that we've developed what we feel is a very strong media portfolio for them to engage more directly with the customers that are coming into the store. And clearly they're doing this in order to drive their ROI. They're doing this to just explain where they are, because I'm sure you're all, like myself, still get lost in Harrods. But it's also about showing that they're present and they're associated with other great luxury brands within the store. So we have a very extensive publishing division. We published over 30 different titles last year, employ 30 plus people. We also have posters, sponsorships, windows, exhibitions, and print and vinyls, and all sorts of integrated media, particularly in direct marketing as well, working with our CRM team to our 500,000 database in the UK. But really at the heart of all of this has been very much our digital signage networks, which we, as I said, we've been developing for the past 10 years. And it was our vision, and really still is our vision today, to be innovators in digital signage within a luxury retail environment. We wanted to be very conscious of design. Clearly we've got a very precious and very special environment and a very special brand, and also lots of very special brands within Harrods itself. So for us, it was all about really trying to work with the best partners, the best providers, the best technology, and how we could best integrate that within this very precious environment. And above all, and I think it's been great to see everyone touch on how important at the end of the day it's about the content and actually making meaningful messages to the actual consumer, which I'll come on to a bit more in a second. But I've just got a short video to show you which shows the transformation, if you like, from our old way of running digital screen networks, which was probably about 6 or 7 years ago, where we had a large number of relatively small format screens integrated into old lightbox poster sites. And the way that we've transformed that as a result of working with architects and designers and our own technical services team, when there's been a major refurbishment like we had last couple of years ago, for the Escalator 10 area. And this short video shows you, hopefully you can tell the difference between the old and the new. So you can see that we're trying to utilise where we've got large format video walls where we can actually use content more creatively. Much of this is we're dependent upon the brands to provide us with great content, but we've got a very talented in-store team who also work and create the content in-store as they do all the scheduling. So we've got around about 7 different networks across the Harrods estate. The mechanics of it is basically they work into 15-second loops which are repeated generally no longer than 5 minutes, although sometimes this is quite difficult to keep to given the very high demand we have at certain times of the year. We have complete flexibility, as you can imagine, in terms of content change, and particularly in a retail environment that's particularly important when you might be making certain decisions on the day, in the morning meeting, and indeed any time of the day you can send out a different message at any time you like. One area that we thought was going to be utilised more than we've actually used is utilising the networks for staff communication before store opening or after store closing. And I still think there's got great opportunity to use this more flexibly. We're also looking to use it more now in terms of day part and using the creative flexibility that the networks offer in terms of sending relevant messages to relevant targets at the right time of the day. And again, I can come on to talk about that in a second. And above all, it's all got to make relevancy for the customer. Again, I'll come to that in a second. But design and aesthetics is really important for us. This photograph shows the Art Nouveau showcases that were originally posters, and then we integrated the screens into this at Escalator 3. This has now actually disappeared, so the next generation for this area is currently under hoarding. But this is a good example of the way that we've integrated screens in a well thought through format. But it's given us some great challenges, certainly in terms of heat and ventilation, putting screens behind glass encased in screens. This is a more recent example of the way we've integrated and maximised the bulkhead space in terms of utilising it as a video wall. And again, the way that we've worked with the designers and the architects to best integrate that to the architectural environment has been particularly important. We still have, in fact, this is a large projection screen which is at door 5, which has been in place for about 7 or 8 years now. We thought it was going to last about a year, but such has been the demand from brands who really want to show up their very expensive creative advertising campaigns in lights and the biggest format possible. It still has huge appeal for them, especially when, of course, they've worked with the world's best models, photographers, and been on these very expensive locations around the world. They obviously want to make sure that they get the best bang for their buck. In terms of the way we've integrated 2 areas like the Egyptian escalator in the heart of the store, this is obviously a very sensitive area in terms of what we can do in this environment. But these screens really pop out in terms of it being quite a dark area, so they really are very impactful across that particular area. And in fact, they do integrate quite well, showing the modern against the sort of more ancient, should we say. But retail, as I'm sure all of you don't need telling, is a very, very challenging environment. The challenges, particularly with in-store digital networks, is how do you effectively reach a moving audience with a moving message. And I think a lot about what we've heard about today is about how handheld devices can interact with static signage, and that's something that we're still challenged with, given the fact that our screens are around the high moving areas in terms of the escalators in the store. It's also about creating engaging content that influences that audience and making it meaningful. And it's also about, we believe, in terms of declutterization. One of my great mantras was when we were putting in the networks that we had to get rid of so much of the paper-based signage around the store in order to clean up the environment and utilize the digital screens to their full flexibility. We also clearly need to make sure that they create an impact and are influential platforms of communication. But in terms of engaging content, I think we were particularly keen on trying to find more relevant. We did quite a bit of customer research about what customers wanted in terms of content. And we were shooting for the Harrods magazine, a particular shoot for trench coats. So now when we're shooting in the studio, we tend to film, so we've got our own digital content that we can use on our other portals. And we are now using, or we did when that very, very wet summer we had last summer, we used this content on the big screens at Escalator 10 just as soon as it was raining outside, which was most days, the team were instructed to obviously play the content.
I'm singing in the rain, just singing in the rain. What a glorious feeling, I'm happy.
So that screen says umbrella, gloves and hats on the ground floor.
I'm laughing at clouds.
We saw some significant uptake, we're pleased to say. Now, obviously I'm putting it down to the screens. I think God would probably put it down to the weather. But the very fact that making relevance with what was going on outside to actually within the store is obviously something which is a bit of a no-brainer. In terms of advertisers and do they feel it works, well, I had a call one day from Daniela at Porsche Design, who was really struggling with a hopeless position, to be honest, that she was given a temporary pop-up store within Harrods, which the adjacencies were terrible. And she was getting she had marvellous products on display, but getting no footfall and no retail sales. So we played around with some of her content she gave us, and within 24 hours we had this reel up on the screens, and the impact was instantaneous. She saw her sales and footfall dramatically increase, literally within an hour of the content going up on the screen. So that's one of our best testimonials, I think, to date. I have a short video now which will just give you perhaps more of an overview of the various networks to put, hopefully, some of what I've been talking about into some perspective. I think there's a lot of product that we see, particularly on display here today, where the utilisation in windows, and again in the presentations prior to me, there was a lot of talk about how store windows can be used effectively. For anybody that's a familiar and regular shopper at Harrods, or even if you go past the store on a regular basis, you'll see that digital screens are featured very widely amongst lots of different promotions and displays in the windows. And perhaps one of the most interesting implementations we saw was actually going back a couple of years when we were running a Swiss promotion, and one of the Swiss brands we partnered with, Tissot Watches, did an augmented reality window display which really captured the imagination of the customers walking past. And here's another quick video just to show you that.
On your wrist.
Yeah, great.
Very impressive use of technology there.
It's incredible. It's incredible. Of course, you can cycle through all the different models as well.
The watch, I thought, was interesting. A good way to kind of find out about a product. I didn't think Tissot was so forward-thinking.
Oh wow, it's really good. No, it's really cool how it's actually on your wrist on the screen.
So it's extremely precise, Swiss precise in fact.
The touchscreen is really cool, you know, it's just a bit like the iPad and all that sort of stuff, you know, the touchscreen interface. I think it's really cool.
The interactive thing is very appealing, and it's amazing what technology does these days.
Now I'm really a bit crazy about the watch because it's so beautiful to see it on the arm.
It's amazing.
I think a couple of things struck me about that. One was about how a lot of the customer reaction was people saying they didn't actually think that Tissot were that technologically advanced or associated with really cool innovations. So I think it's the way that brands can utilize digital and technology in a really positive way. But I think the other thing is also, you know, that was, 18 months, 2 years ago, and the way that technology has moved on so quickly is frightening. And actually, some of that stuff is quite old hat now, particularly when you look around the room and seeing some of the things that we've seen here today. And in terms of our own evolution of digital, this is probably a familiar slide, hopefully, to some of you in the room. One of the main entrances off Hans Crescent into the store. And we are planning to redevelop this area in 2015, I believe. So, for example, what we've currently got, again, using our strategy of moving away from high volumes of smaller screens to lower numbers of high-impact screens. This is how something like this could look in the future. Likewise, on the first floor, this is our ode to Grace Brothers, and the rather 70s display cases complete with red carpet. I'm pleased to say the red carpet is now gone. But again, this is how something like a display case might change. And we found, again, the feedback from the brands is they don't want to go completely digital. For them, it's really important to still have some product displays that they can actually integrate digital with their displays to give more information about the product to the consumer. Again, this is a current wall of screens that we've currently got on this particular busy escalator, which might turn into, again, declutterization, far more high impact, a much cleaner presentation of the actual material itself. And in fact, the existing escalator at the back of the store, this is a photograph of how it looked before it went into hoarding and the sledgehammers came out. And this is how it's going to look when it opens later on this year, scheduled to open, I think, at the beginning of November. Going back to all its glory from a bygone era, with much more natural light coming in from the outside of the store. We're working with Make Architects, who are doing a fantastic job in terms of bringing back the former glories of this area. And this is how we might be integrating, we will be integrating, digital video walls into the environment. Again, very much designed in right at this early planning stages. So we're working very closely with our technical services and architects right at the early planning stages, rather than being an afterthought and bolted on after the event. And again, one final visual just to show how that might look from another area. So that was it from me. Thanks very much for listening.